Hong Kong police have arrested 2 martial artists. The charge is sedition. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. This episode is sponsored by Incogni. You probably know the companies are collecting your personal data, but you may not realize just how many. Dozens, maybe hundreds, most of which you've never heard of. And you have no idea what they're doing with it. Incogni helps you stop them. I'll explain more at the end. And speaking of unscrupulous organizations trying to figure out what you're up to, authorities in Hong Kong are going after dissenters who don't like the Chinese Communist Party, which is definitely not going to make even more people dislike the Chinese Communist Party. Last week, authorities arrested a 59-year-old local martial arts teacher and his 62-year-old female assistant. The Hong Kong police have accused them of training anti-China warriors. The suspects are accused of posting anti-government messages, including calls to topple China's communist regime and for a shadow government and self-defense force to be established. Okay, well, setting up a self-defense force does sound pretty serious. I mean, that's at least what Hong Kong Police Senior Superintendent Steve Lee claimed. Lee also said police said they found unlawful weapons including an air gun, 8 crossbows, 30 steel-tipped arrows, and a collection of blades. Wait a minute. They were planning to overthrow the Chinese Communist Party with 1 air gun, some crossbows, and a collection of blades? Okay, someone has been watching too many Hong Kong martial arts films. This isn't Return of the Condor Heroes. Having personally observed the armed Hong Kong riot police, I don't think a couple of old martial artists and a group of students with 8 crossbows, 1 air gun, and a collection of blades are much of a threat to these guys. Unless, of course, those blades were the Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber. What can I say? I'm a Jin Yong fan. But were these martial artists really going to, as police claimed, be able to overthrow the government and set up an independent state? Probably about as likely as they were to fly through the trees. Now I get why Hong Kong authorities and the Chinese Communist Party feel threatened by martial artists. They've probably watched a lot of Hong Kong martial arts dramas too. And in that case, these guys are definitely the baddies. And their boss is a not-so-secret member of the Golden Honey Bear sect. But there's definitely something more going on here. See, technically the martial arts master and his assistant were both charged with possessing offensive weapons and possessing firearms without a license. And the man was additionally charged with sedition. But Hong Kong Police Senior Superintendent Steve Lee seemed to have accidentally revealed the real reason for the charges when he said the arrested persons were deeply affected by misinformation and became self-radicalized. Now they are spreading the misinformation to others. So authorities aren't worried so much about potential violence from a tiny group with insignificant firepower, no. They're worried about something much more dangerous: ideas, or what police call misinformation, including, I assume, the misinformation that Chinese and Hong Kong authorities are a threat to people's freedoms. So they arrested 2 elderly people without any hint of irony. Adding a layer of irony is that to go after the martial arts teacher, Hong Kong authorities used a British colonial-era sedition law from 1938. That law was originally designed to go after pro-communist forces in Hong Kong. The sedition law had rarely been used since the 1960s, and not even once since the handover of Hong Kong to China in 1997. That is, until 2020. That's when authorities passed the draconian Hong Kong National Security Law. And then they dusted off this old British law to go after anti-communist forces in Hong Kong. The first person in decades to be convicted using that law is Tam Tak Chi, a Hong Kong pro-democracy radio host. He was convicted of sedition last month. Sedition carries a maximum 2-year sentence, and he was found guilty on 11 counts of sedition, including saying the now banned protest phrase, "Liberate Hong Kong, revolution of our times," as well as "death to corrupted police families." At this point, it's unclear what his final sentence will be. But what is clear is that before the conviction, he had already been held in jail for more than a year without bail. And that's the main way Hong Kong authorities are using the law. They lock people up for long periods of time on charges and then deny them bail. That way, most of the time, authorities don't even have to prove the person is guilty of anything. They can just hold them in long-term detention. For instance, last July, authorities used sedition charges to arrest 5 people behind a series of children's books about sheep. Those books were a metaphor for the Hong Kong democracy movement, illustrated with the peaceful, free domain of sheep being taken over by evil wolves. So police arrested them. As far as I can tell, these 5 people have been locked up for more than 8 months now without bail and without actually being convicted of any crime, except the crime of using a metaphor so obvious even the Hong Kong police understood it. These guys don't read a lot, but it was a picture book. So for the 2 martial artists arrested last week, what's likely to happen is that authorities will simply hold them in jail for an extended period of time. Maybe in a year they'll convict them of sedition and weapons possession, or maybe they'll just release them. But either way, it's a warning. We can lock you up whenever we want, so don't speak out against the Chinese Communist Party. And I guess don't do subversive martial arts. Which means with moves like this, I can never go back to Hong Kong. And this episode is sponsored by Incogni. Whenever you do anything online, there's a huge number of companies that collect your personal data. Your name, your email, your home address, your social security number, your employment history, all sorts of things. What are they doing with your data? Some of them are selling it to marketers who want to sell you stuff or put you on their email lists or send you spam. Others use it for shadier things. When I signed up for Incogni in February, there were 76 data brokers that potentially had my private information. I'd never heard of most of these companies. But I started looking into them. And it turns out one of them, called N-Focus, collects people's personal data to sell to government agencies. See, the US government can't seize your digital data without a warrant, but they can buy it from private companies. And even spammers are buying your very private data. My producer Matt recently got this email offering homeowner stimulus relief, which of course was a scam, but the creepy part is the sender knew his actual home address. And that's why you should really consider using Incogni. Incogni forces these companies to delete your data. There are laws that allow you to do this yourself, but first you'd have to figure out all the applicable laws, write letters in a specific legal way, and follow up to make sure your instructions are actually being followed. Incogni handles this for you. Since signing up for Incogni, they've already gotten my details removed from 14 of these data brokers, with 40 more in progress. And I didn't have to do anything once I finished signing up. So check out Incogni using the link below, or go to incogni.com/uncensored. The first 100 people to use the code uncensored will get 20% off. Get your personal data off the market with Incogni. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.